concept, a group of scientists tries to unite humanity by giving it a common enemy. In practice, this sounds like a good idea, especially if the enemy is a hostile extraterrestrial being. However, the reality is much darker. A classic sci-fi anthology series, The Outer Limits is sometimes unfairly remembered as a rip-off of the Twilight Zone. However, unlike the Twilight Zone, which explored genres from fantasy to horror to science fiction, The Outer Limits dedicates itself solely to hard science fiction, and is especially remembered for its myriad of alien creatures. Though the series provided many monsters during its run, only one was censored for being potentially too frightening for audiences, an alien called a Thetan, which is part of the show's second episode, The Architects of Fear. The episode first aired in 1963, and its alien doesn't look at all scary by today's standards. In fact, compared with current special effects, it looks rather silly. But the source of the audience's horror was never meant to be the Thetan's appearance. That doesn't mean the episode isn't terrifying. It is, and was, but not for the reason ABC executives worried about. Because its storyline continues to be as relevant to the present day to the time when it first aired, The Architects of Fear is just as horrifying now as it was in 1963. Collider video of the day. The episode begins with a group of scientists deciding that the best way to avert a nuclear apocalypse is to unite humanity against a common enemy. And what better enemy than an extraterrestrial invader? The scientists draw lots to see which of them will be surgically transformed into an alien creature called a Thetan. The episode follows the man whose name is drawn, Alan Layden, Robert Culp, as he undergoes the injections and surgeries necessary for his transformation. Even though Alan is very much in love with his wife, Yvette, Geraldine Brooks, and after having his name drawn finds out they're expecting a child, he chooses to go ahead with the surgeries, so dedicated is he to his and the other scientists' cause of world peace. Yvette doesn't know anything about the plan, and will be told that her husband is dead. Even early on in the episode, it's clear that what the scientists are doing is wrong. It helps that the concept of surgically transforming a man into an alien is deeply repulsive. Yet utilitarianism is a philosophy to which many people subscribe. The good of the many outweighs that of the one. The ends, if exalted enough, justify the means. World peace is a pretty exalted end. And Alan Layden is, after all, consenting to go through with the surgeries. And yet, because of the sheer horror of the episode's subject matter, any argument in its defense ends up coming off as deeply cynical. The Architects of Fear strips utilitarianism of its enlightened, philosophical veneer and shows it in all its ugliness and negative connotations as a group of people condemn one of their own to extreme anguish, with the justification that one man's anguish will be justified if the world can then live in harmony. Completely apart from the utilitarian angle is the hubris of the scientist's story. They collectively decide what is best for mankind and, after doing so, embark on a course of action that will have global consequences. They do not know if their plan will work exactly as they envision it. Have they considered the disastrous, rather than beneficial effects it may have if it goes awry? Perhaps, but such risks must be taken, when something as important as world peace is at stake. And who gave them this power? These are regular scientists, yet they have put themselves in a position of authority over the world equaling that of a governing body. They hold this power in the shadows, without anyone's knowledge, and, in secrecy, they plot to change the course of human history based on nothing but their own judgment. The promise of a dream society so often ends with the murder of its citizens, with the justification that this death is the price of progress. The 20th century was defined by dictatorships built on such promises for a better future. And, at the head of such societies, there is always a man or group of men who believe they know what was best for mankind. Even today, the threat of having the future shaped by a small group of elites who believe they know what's best for their country or for humanity is still a relevant one. It is still something many people fear even from elected governing bodies. The concept of someone with that much power operating unseen, completely invisible to the public, is in many ways the most extreme version of this fear. However, it also reflects the continually relevant issue of how much power a citizen has in determining their own and their country's destiny. How connected are leaders to their citizens, instead of their own ideas of what a better world would look like? The scientists and the architects of fear are not world leaders. However, their presumption still reflects the attitude of many politicians towards their constituents. Of course, the plan at the center of the episode goes terribly wrong. Once Alan is transformed, he's launched into space. His re-entry path is supposed to land him in front of the United Nations. However, a navigational error lands him in the woods near the laboratory. There, he is discovered by a group of hunters who, terrified at his appearance, shoot him. With the last of his strength, he returns to the lab. Yvette, who never believed he was dead, is visiting the lab as well. He runs into her, as well as a group of other scientists. Though unable to speak, he makes a sign to Yvette that only the two of them would recognize. She realizes that the alien is Alan, but it's too late. He dies, leaving Yvette weeping over his deformed body. The Architects of Fear is not anti-science. However, it is against a certain approach to science. Specifically, it condemns the idea that science should be used as a means to control nature. For the outer limits, scientific progress must be paired with a moral compass, a human conscience, rather than just cold logic. Science is increasingly in the hands of the most powerful people on the planet. What happens when such people have the means to control nature, enough imagination to visualize an ideal world, and enough hubris to suppose that it's what's best for everyone else as well? Part of what makes the Architects of Fear so effective is the way it shows how the scientists' plans affect the other characters on a human, individual level. Both in the 20th century and now, Alan and Yvette's tragic story gives the price of progress a human face. Looking at their story, and that of the scientists, we see how much we have to lose. Alan and Yvette's story is heartbreaking, and when it ends, what hurts is not that the scientists' plan for world peace went awry. It's that Alan sacrificed himself for a fundamentally broken ideal. That his sacrifice ultimately came to nothing. And what if it had worked? Would science still be justified in doing something like this to a man? It is ironic that, in the end, those who are most afraid are the architects themselves, so afraid that they are willing to perform gruesome procedures on one of their own in the hopes that their fear will be assuaged. This episode is a prescient reminder of what fear can do to us, and the extremes to which we ourselves can go if we let ourselves be controlled by fear. Though it aired in the midst of Cold War paranoia, we ourselves live in a world tragically similar to that in which The Outer Limits was originally made. In the words of the closing narration, there is no magic substitute for soft caring and hard work, for self-respect and mutual love. If we can learn this from the mistake these frightened men made, then their mistake will have been at least a lesson, at last, to be learned.